Hey, Husky fans, welcome back to Fourth and Inches, a Husky podcast from Sports Illustrated Husky Maven channel. My name's Trevor Mueller. His name's Jake Grant, and we're like Taylor and Zanino.
World Series players, ex-Mariners.
Now, if we had a third, who would be my third in that group?
Um, gosh, it.
You have to
I
know
was
the
gonna say
Mariners. You have to know
if
the
you were gonna.
Mariners minors.
Oh, I don't know.
Kiermaier.
Oh, Kiermaier. Kiermaier was a Mariner.
Yes, he
Well,
was.
not a Mariner, obviously, but he was in the minors.
Yes, he was. I
I
think
I like him, but he cannot hit
yeah, no.
at all.
He was he was a Zarenzek guy.
Was he?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was gonna say if you say Justin Smoke, I'm gonna blow my brains out.
Moak. I think
Can't
he
handle that guy.
Smoaked his way out of a job. I mean,
Did he
yeah,
again?
I mean, a part of me died when he made an all-star team one year with the Blue
I
Jays.
know.
He was so I mean, you're not as active on Twitter as I am. There was a um somebody put like, what was your worst sports take
Yeah.
in history? And I mentioned the one where I told you that in a year's time, all of the billboards with Ichiro's faces on it would be replaced with Dustin Ackley's.
Hey, I drank the Kool-Aid too, man.
All
I was
about it. He hit 273 in his first season. He was going to the Hall of
he
Fame.
was he was the guy.
Uh-huh.
It was Ackley, Smoke, Zanino, all those guys.
Montero.
I drank all the Kool-Aid, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And still to this day, to be fair, I'm still a Zanino guy.
Oh yeah,
I still like Mikey Z. I'm so happy he's playing for the World Series.
me
But
too.
all the other guys, I'm so glad they're out of a job.
I loved Dustin Ackley and I rooted for him forever.
I rooted for him when they brought him back.
Me too.
I was like, hey, here we go.
Yeah,
This is that story where
the resurrection.
the guy can't figure it out, and then he comes back, and then all of a sudden he's great, and it just was more of the same.
It didn't happen.
The beard didn't help Dustin. It was
He
horrible.
looked like he was unemployed while he was employed.
we're two to talk, right?
Yeah, my beard's actually like pretty well taken care of right
Is
now.
it? Yeah.
Yours is a little more bushy right now.
Things our listeners don't need to know.
But now that we're going to be on YouTube, I guess they should.
I guess, man. Apparently, I'm going to trim this thing up to
Uh-huh.
get on that.
Son, you look like you work outside.
Who would have thought?
All right, so I guess there's a lot of news, there's a lot of stuff going on, but the big deal today was that Washington's first game against Cal has been scheduled. Pac-12 After Dark, 7:30. What's your ESPN? What's your take?
It's funny because on Saturday or Sunday, I was talking to my wife, and she goes, I cannot wait for the Huskies to start again. And I go, yeah, me either. It's right around the corner. And I made a kind of a snarky comment to her. I was like, watch, they're going to have them play the night game the first week. And then today I saw it on Twitter, and she was like, you called that. And I go, yeah, it's pretty typical. I mean,
Yeah.
for them to do that, it's pretty typical. So I think like the rest of the fans, we're all over the Pac-12 After Dark, but the fact that we get football, I'll take what I can get at this point, right?
I think that's a really good way to put it. There's not going to be any tailgating. There's not going to be the trip home where you get home at 2 a.m. and then your Sunday is totally shot.
Sure.
So I think like for a season where there's no fans and you're just going to be watching it on TV, it just means you have to stay up later, which, for
Saturday
us
night,
probably
maybe.
isn't great because, we have kids that don't care if you stayed up late.
Right.
But this week it works out for me well. My nephew's birthday is that day, so he'll be long in bed before 7:30. So I think we're going to be in good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we got Cal. We'll preview Cal coming up next week, and we'll kind of give our picks and really start to really uh, get our teeth into this Pac-12 season. It feels like it's been a long time coming, but now that it's here, it's like, oh man, we got to get going.
Yeah, yeah, and could you imagine what it feels like for the coaches and players?
I mean,
We have that feeling as podcasters, but could you
yeah,
imagine? I mean, these guys weren't doing a whole lot of practicing, and now all of a sudden it's like, oh, you got a game against a team that kind of has owned you over the last 2 or 3 seasons, and you better get right
yeah,
with a
it
new quarterback, with
right.
a lot of starting new offensive linemen, and that's a lot of work to be done in a short span of time.
Right. The good news is Washington, from what I've heard from the players, is they've all been working out this whole time. So
Yeah,
getting into game shape wasn't necessarily, outside of a few guys.
sure.
They were ready to go, and I know that a lot of them just were so happy to finally scrimmage so they could actually put pads on and hit each other.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of weird because it sounds like there's been some hitting, but when you think of like a preseason, you got spring ball, then you have fall camp. You get so sick of hitting each other. I don't think it's like that because they're finally getting to play football again, so they're not taking it for granted.
Yeah, my biggest worry in this upcoming season is the injury.
Yeah.
What you saw it happen in the NFL. You got shortened off season and preseason, and guys' bodies aren't acclimated, and then you throw them into 100% game speed, and ACLs are torn, and Achilles, and stuff like that. I mean, obviously bones don't change, but you got to get those.
Soft tissues, yeah.
Yeah, you got to go get those joints right, and that's my major worry of this season. I'd hate to see anybody go down, but I'd hate to see our marquee guys go down, and especially I don't want to name names because I don't want to be the guy that names somebody and then it happens, and
Sure.
then fans come after me like, you idiot.
Yeah.
But somebody that's liable to go to the league this year that
Right.
came back for another season,
Mhm.
could potentially lose a lot of draft stock on this.
Right. Well, speaking of that, Jake, let's kind of get into it. We got our position preview today. We're
Yeah.
going to go through all the positions. We're going to talk about some of the guys. We're going to give our starters and our backups, and we're going to start where honestly it matters most. They have the ball in their hands the longest, and that's the quarterback position. So if you look at the field of quarterbacks, you have a very diverse group of guys and a lot of different skill sets.
Yeah.
And it's going to be who fits that pro style attacking style of offense that John Donovan wants to run.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through the names, and Jake, I'll let you kind of take what you want. Kevin Thompson, he's the transfer quarterback from the FCS. We have Jacob Sermon, Dylan Morris, Ethan Garbers, and then one of the walk-ons that Jake, you and I are really high on in general is Jaden Sheffy from George Fox University. So what, Jake, it kind of like overall feel of the quarterback group, and then you can do your starter and backup.
We've talked about the quarterbacks quite a bit. We're both really high on this in this room. There's a lot of depth. There's a lot of talent. Like you said, it's very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes down to it, to me, and I don't know if you feel the same way, but it's kind of a 2-horse race. You got Dylan Morris and you got Jacob Sermon. Some people are throwing Garbers in there. I think Garbers is a little young still, hasn't been in the program long enough. These two guys are the competition, the starting competition battle right now. And I don't know who to pick. Everything that I've read is that Morris is not the front runner. It's Sermon's kind of taking the stranglehold on the starting job, but we don't know because we haven't been allowed to go to practice, see practice, and all that other stuff. So it's hard to tell. But from my point of view, it's a 2-horse race between Sermon and Morris, and it just, like you said, it just depends on what type of quarterback you want to run in that pro style offense. And if you truly want to run a pro style offense, it's going to be Sermon.
Right. And it is funny to watch Twitter. Like every time there's a play and a quarterback throws it to a receiver or a tight end or something, they're like, "Oh, he's running with the ones." It's like, "Well, yeah, he's running with the ones." Like
Right.
they're all running with the ones. They're all getting equal reps.
Right.
So I don't buy that. I see Kevin Thompson actually, from what I've seen, the little bit we've been able to see, Kevin Thompson's looked good as well.
Yeah.
And that valuable game experience in a 6-game season like this, I think really skyrockets him to, part of that front of that line. So I think it's going to come down to either Kevin Thompson or Jacob Sermon. We are into making hot takes, and if they're wrong, we forget about them. If we're right, we'll bring them back up. So I'm going to go Jake Sermon as the starter, Kevin Thompson as my backup.
And I'm going to go Sermon as my starter, which sucks to say because I was on that Morris train for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say that Kevin Thompson is not the backup, and I'm going to say it's Morris.
Okay. Yeah, and the thing about Dylan Morris is some of those plays that we've seen as those highlights of the daily practice, they have been Morris, and he's been making very good throws.
And I guess the bummer part about kind of we'll call it spring ball for right now, or training camp. Morris is kind of handcuffed. He has the ability to run that Sermon does not. And when a play breaks down and defensive players get by that red jersey, they're going to blow that whistle dead. And Morris isn't going to be able to escape the pocket and kind of show what he can do with his feet. And that's another side to Morris that I don't think Sermon possesses, but isn't able to show it at the same time. So it's Sermon's arm versus Morris's arm right now.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll see. This year it's definitely an open competition, and coaches don't have to look forward, but we can.
Right.
If Sermon wins the job and takes a hold of it, there could definitely be some moving around with transfers, unfortunately, just because it sucks to see guys that you grow to like leave. But it seems like a decent succession to have Sermon for 2 years, and then Sam Heward's coming.